And here we go. So before I get started with session 3, and remember today we're going to be focusing on updating the equipment. So we're going to switch roles from SD08 to SD11. I know the majority of questions on SD11 and updating equipment were asked yesterday, but I'm sure today we'll have a number of new questions as well. I wanted to go over some of the issues that some of you have raised in emails in terms of layouts. And when I mean layouts, I'm saying comparing the layout that is in Umoja when you select the physical verification layout versus the layout in the template that you download from iSeek. And yes, we did mention that yesterday during the session as well, that there were some discrepancies. So remember, especially when you are copying and pasting the last discrepancy, the results from the last discrepancy from I808, and you're pasting these results into the actual Excel that you've downloaded from iSeek, all the columns are not exactly the same as they are in the template. So be careful when you're pasting them that you make sure that everything is in the right place, because a lot of you, when you're generating the text file from the Excel template, you're getting some errors, and a lot of them are due to the misplacement of some of the data in the fields. And I know some questions have been raised, and I think one of those questions was also addressed to you, Sega, in terms of if there's going to be any updates with these layouts so that they can match and these issues do not occur. Now, maybe you don't have an answer of that yet. Maybe in the future there'll be a new template or so. I know you did mention on session 1 that some updates were coming. So maybe those can be addressed later on, unless you want to intervene now and just answer that question. You can. But I know I've received at least 5 or 6 emails referring to the errors that they get because they're copying and pasting data and then realize that it's not there. So guys, remember that when pasting the layouts, pasting the data, the layouts may be different. So keep an eye out for that.
Brian?
Yes.
So
Tell me, Sega.
So the layout in I808 was set up at the beginning before we went live. So unless somebody played around with it and changed it, it shouldn't give you an error when you copy and paste it. So the layout in I808 should match the template layout, unless, because anybody can go in and change it. So unless somebody has made changes to it since we set it up, it shouldn't give an error. So can I ask for the users to create a ticket and send me an email if there is such error? Then we'll have to set up the template again.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to add, and I probably should have added that before when I was commenting it, of course, all these issues are related to training environments. So maybe I haven't tested this in production, just of course, because I don't want to mess up anyone's inventory. And maybe in production, and that's out for the students, if you guys are testing it in production by any chance, let us know, because I do know in the last discrepancy tab, if you just copy and paste directly from what you've extracted from Umoja, at least in the training environment, there is an issue with the columns and the layout. But nevertheless, thanks, Sega, and yes, for what Sega said, you can raise a ticket if you do find this issue. Of course, we're talking about in production and not in the training environment. And let's get started with today's session. So, our last session, third and last session of our series. And again, we'll go over the objectives quickly so we know the overall objective already. And just quickly go, let me just set up my pointer here so you all follow what I'm doing. So, okay, so the objective of the WebEx session 3. Right? So we're going to assess and also resolve equipment record discrepancies. So in this case, we are the SD11 and already received the report on the discrepancies from the SD08. And now it's our turn to assess these discrepancies and, if necessary, of course, resolve the equipment record discrepancies. I recommend that you all take a look at the job aid if you haven't done so already, because the steps are really well explained in the job aid, and exactly this part of assessing the discrepancy report from SD08 is very well explained. So what are we going to cover today exactly? We're going to look at the mass upload template, the Excel, that we find on iSeek, and also we're going to be using the T-code here that we see on screen to upload, again, another text file. So again, we're going to have to generate a text file from the Excel and upload that one as well. And we'll also see briefly that, of course, equipment updates, as was mentioned yesterday also by Sega, in some cases where you're really just updating one equipment, you can do so using the T codes here, as shown in the slide. I know some of you were mentioning that yesterday as well, so yes, you don't have to use the mass upload tool just for one piece of equipment, but if there's more than one, then it definitely saves some time. Okay, so we can move on to our next slide now that the objectives are clear. Again, today we're focusing on the Equipment Master Data Maintainer, SD11, and basically we're focusing on the highlighted area, assess and resolve physical verification discrepancies. So I highlighted that area because we're not going to cover the initiate write-off and disposal via notification. That was already done in another WebEx session with Leandro. And the same thing, we're not going to cover initiate transfer STO process either. Okay, so basically just here, point 2, to assess and resolve physical verification discrepancies. So again, just to remember what we have done so far and what we're covering today. So in the first session, what we did was first extract the equipment list when we were acting as the SD08, so that was already covered. And also, Cass and Sega were nice enough to go over the reports that were available or published in BI. Then on session 2, again, still as SD08, we uploaded the template with the list of equipments that had discrepancies, and also the last discrepancies list that we also uploaded to Umoja. Okay, so that again will not be covered today in this session. And finally, for session 2, we extracted the equipment discrepancy list, which was also part of the exercise that we sent for you to do. So finally, now that we've done all the previous steps, today we're going to focus on updating equipment record. Okay, so again, as we know, discrepancy report will be extracted from Umoja for the list of equipment where discrepancies are noted as part of the inspection. Now, the SD11 is responsible for resolving discrepancies and taking appropriate action to update equipment based on the discrepancy identified. Okay, so that has to be clear. So based on the discrepancy, this is what we're going to be performing. And again, the mandatory fields that we're going to be looking at in the mass change tool, the ones that we have to ensure that are populated. And again, we'll be looking at the Excel file anyway, so this is just to go over it before we see the actual file itself. And when updating the equipment, and again, you can check the job aid, as I was mentioning at the beginning, the job aid for physical verification process exactly on page 45. You can see what would be the fields to update if we're updating equipment directly, business partner, functional location, and so on. So this covers the basics of what we're going to see today as well, the mass change tool. And if we have some time, which I'm sure we probably will, we can take a look at how to update equipment one by one. Okay, so now as I move on to the next slide, maybe Saida, do we have any questions in the meantime? Nothing yet. Okay, too early, I guess. Okay, so now again, here we'll have the T codes in the PowerPoint, which you should have received this morning. Basically, the T codes we're going to be focusing on for the equipment update according to discrepancy. Now, this is extracted directly from the job aid, and this part, especially the first initial part here with discrepancy 01, right? Not found yet. This sentence, the utility automatically updates the equipment user status to equipment not found. Okay, so, and Sega, this is sort of a question that goes out to you as well. So when I'm reading this in the job aid, let's say, and I see that the utility automatically updates the equipment user status to equipment not found. So I'm the SD11 and I received this report from the SD08. that tells me the discrepancy 01 for item not found. So in what sense, if you could just to briefly explain this, how does the utility automatically update this? So then it's not the responsibility of the SD11 to do anything in that case. The system automatically does it. And based on what? If you could just explain that a little bit, just because that sentence could probably be misleading for some people.
Sure, Brian, no problem. So when the physical verification results are uploaded into the system, if the equipment is identified with discrepancy 1, so which is equipment not found, the equipment status will be automatically updated to not found. So the equipment status is updated at the same time updating the discrepancy in the equipment. And this happens only for equipment not found. So when the SD11 is looking at the list of equipments that have a status of equipment not found, that means those equipments have a discrepancy 1. And the SD11 will have to investigate if that equipment is actually not found, if it's lost or if it's misplaced. He'll have to search for it and follow the proper process. And once he has determined that it's actually lost and he can't find it, then he'll have to initiate the write-off process. If he does end up finding it, then he'll have to update the equipment status from equipment not found to assigned, if the equipment is assigned to someone, or bring it into stock if it's just sitting idle.
Okay, thank you. Very, very clear, Sega. So yes, I just wanted to make sure when I was reading it. So in this case, for discrepancy 01, it happens automatically. It's just not done for the other types of discrepancies. So again, the SD11 wouldn't have to really do anything except this would be done automatically. So I just wanted to make sure that's what I understood. And if by any chance anyone else was thinking the same thing, you definitely answered the question. So thank you. Okay, and then again, remember the discrepancy 02 user location status. So what we're modifying, business partner, functional location, and equipment status. Now we know that changing these by the SD11 may require goods issue and also a notification. So again, as the job aid indicates, and I'm just indicating here again, is refer to equipment assignment job aid. And I believe there's a link to these job aids in this PowerPoint as well. Then for discrepancy 03, when we're modifying manufacturer serial number, barcode, authorization group, the job aid indicates to refer to equipment update and equipment mass update if you're having any issues. And again, then we have discrepancy 04, so we follow the same process as 02 and 03. So I believe this is quite clear, and we'll move on to our next slide. Okay, so now focusing more on the T-code I808 and also the T-code below, ZPMEQU change. It's quite a long T-code, so definitely add that one to your favorites because it may be difficult to remember. So now updating the equipment record and equipment mass change tool and how these T-codes are related to it. So the process is something that we may be a little more familiar with than the ones we've been seeing in session 1 and session 2, because if I'm not mistaken, during GDP, especially cycle 2, when we were training on the equipment update, we directly went to the mass change tool. We didn't load the discrepancies or pull reports on last discrepancies. We directly focused on just the equipment mass change tool and how to extract the Excel, go to the T-code, extract the equipment that we needed with IH08, and then again, go to the T-code below to upload this text file that was generated from the Excel. So I think we're all a little more familiar with this process. Nevertheless, let's go over point by point. So the first thing would be to extract the mass change tool, Excel, and we'll look at that now and where to find it. Right below the job aid in iSeek. We also extract the list of equipment records to be updated. Okay, we'll do that with IH08. So again, you guys have your own list of equipment in the credentials Excel that was shared with you. So use that equipment still. We're using the same one. But now we're going to be changing the layout. Now we know we were using ZZ_PV to extract the ones for physical verification, and now we're going to be changing that layout to the following: EQ mass change. And then again, and here we can get into this one later just to make sure, because I've been playing around with this Excel quite a bit, trying to upload it or trying to convert it into text file without doing some of these changes, and I had a number of errors, but we'll get to that once we get into the Excel. Okay, and what this stands for here: format cells, 0 decimal places. It's also found in the actual job aid, and this job aid is not the one for physical verification, but it's the one related to equipment mass change. It'll indicate that you have to do something with the Excel that you extract from Umoja, and we'll get to that in a second. And so I'll just take note of that one so I can cover it in depth. Again, just like we did for the Excel that we were uploading for physical verification, the mass change tool also works in a similar way in terms of the fields and the data that you have to add to it. Right, so again, the Excel contains 3 tabs, and we'll be looking at that. One with instructions, one where you're going to paste the initial data that you extract, and one tab that'll be there exactly for the updates that you perform. Okay, the tab that you'll have to just paste the information, and the information I'm talking about the equipment records to be updated, will be the IE05 data extracted tab. And here's where we're going to paste the extracted data. Then we have Update Data tab, which is the one right next to it, where we make the necessary changes. And again, we also have our set of mandatory fields, which cannot be blank or deleted, and our optional fields, only if value is changed or removed. If not, just leave them blank. And again, just like we did for physical verification, to delete previous field, you can use also the backslash. So it kind of works very similar to the one for physical verification. We'll be taking a look at this Excel sheet, and you can visualize what I'm talking about. And then, of course, once we have copied and pasted all the data and made all the necessary changes, we have to upload the mass change tool. But first, convert the Excel into text format, just like we did with physical verification. Then once it's transformed or converted into text format, that's when we use this long T code here and upload the text file. Okay, so I believe this slide summarizes quite well the step-by-step process of updating equipment records when using the mass change tool. Okay, so before I go into my next slide, any questions, Saida?
Yes, one question, and I guess it's related to the different steps that you mentioned. Is does the SD08 has to act after the SD11 managed to find the equipment?
Okay, Saida, thank you. So does the SD08 have to act once the equipment has been found? Okay, well, I'll let Sega add anything to it, but according to Job Aid, no, the SD08 should not have to act, as if there has to be a record created in Umoja, it would have to be done by the SD10, and then SD11 would just update and enrich this record. And if it's an asset, again, as we explained yesterday, the asset record would have to be created as well. So the SD08 wouldn't really have anything to do as far as I know, but Sega, if you want to add anything there. Okay, probably not. All right, maybe they're having trouble unmuting themselves. Well, Sega, if you want to intervene later on, you can do so as well. Okay, so I'm just going to move on, but technically the answer is no until we'll see if Sega comes in and adds anything else to that. Okay, so our next slide here is really just making reference to exceptional processes that may occur when we're updating this equipment record. And here, this also, I think, relates to the question that I just answered and that was just asked 2 seconds ago. The exceptional processes where the SD10 or SD11 or FA15, if I'm not mistaken, will have to participate when also going over impairment, updating asset records, and write-off. as shown here. We're only going to cover this generally. We're not going to get into this because this would need another 3 days of WebEx sessions. So again, remember, this was also stated during physical verification that if the item found was a fixed asset, we'd have to create the asset master record, create the equipment record, and enrich the equipment record. And of course, none of these things would be done by the SD08. Another exceptional process is the impairment review. If required, we'd have to extract and send list of assets to technical units. So of course, in this case, the SD08 would be doing this, and then conduct the impairment review. And all this information is also found in the job aid. In terms of, my voice is fading, as in cracking, or just, hold on, let me just make sure I'm okay. No? Any better? Is that the case for everybody else? Can everybody else hear me clearly?
Hi, Brian. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sega. Okay. So then, good thing, Sega, can just hear me across the room. Right. So, Sega, I don't know if you heard the question before, just to have your confirmation. If the SD08 would have to do anything after the SD11 is making the changes to the equipment.
No, the SD8 does not have to do anything after.
Okay.
So the only thing the SD8 will do is upload the discrepancy, and then it goes to the SD11 to resolve the discrepancy.
Okay, perfect. So that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure, asking you first. Okay, thank you. And again, to just finalize the exceptional processes here, we have write-off with the discrepancy not found yet. Of course, if in the case that we cannot, again, after searching for this equipment, if we can still say that yes, the discrepancy is 01 and it's not found yet, of course, we'd have to initiate the write-off process, right, by creating a notification and initiate write-off as per SOP and DOA. Okay, so basically this, we're just going to go over these exceptional processes here in the slide. We're not going to go into them in detail. And finally, our last slide here, where we have our T codes for the equipment mass change equipment, and links to the job aids as well as the template. So that's the end of this presentation. And now we can go into looking at where to find the job aid, where to find the Excel, and then go into Umoja and start making some actual changes. So let me just exit the presentation. Are you still, can you still see my screen? Okay, I'm just wondering if by any chance it's frozen. Okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because I think I have a small technical issue, and I'll be right back. Okay. And here we go. All right, so we're back to normal here. This PowerPoint was acting up on me. Okay, so while I log into Umoja in the training environment, maybe we can check and see if there are maybe any further questions. I know the majority of these were asked yesterday, but just in case.
Yeah, one question from Augustine, who's asking, after the SD11 has rectified or corrected the discrepancy, how will the SD08 know? Is there a notification?
Okay, so I guess this question is maybe officially, how will the SD08 know if there's like an email or a notification or such? Because the explanation is not, or at least I wasn't able to find it in the job aid if there's an official way of notifying them. I'm sure they can just tell each other, but maybe Sega, is there going to be maybe an official way of confirming that the job is done from one role to another?
Brian, no, there's no workflow, so there's no notification that will go to any of the users. So we'll have to run reports to monitor that the item has been changed or if it's been reconciled.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sega. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm logging into the training environment, and we're going to go take a look at the Excel sheet as well that we need. Okay, so we all know this process quite well already. And here we go. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to do, right, the first part of what we're doing as SD11 would be to, of course, extract the equipment list that needs to be updated. Now, in this case, and for the sake of the WebEx session, we all have 5 pieces of equipment in our credentials. So again, those are the ones we're going to be extracting. So the process is very similar to what we've been doing these days. We go to IH08. And here we go. We have our T code once again, one that we're very familiar with. And we scroll down to the bottom, and here's where the main difference will begin, right? The layout. So if you see here, you may still have the old layout for physical verification. So all we'll have to do is select a different layout. And in this case, it was the one for equipment mass change. So we make sure that we select it, and that's the one that we're looking at. And we're selecting this layout again just because, of course, the data that we're extracting from Umoja is eventually going to have to match the layout of the Excel that we're also going to be downloading from iSeq. So the layout should be the same. Then again, if I'm not mistaken, we will not need to write the equipment category in this case, and maybe even in this case, I know Sega was mentioning the maintenance plant and the planning plant, right? The planning plant to extract the physical verification. So is it safe to say the same thing will have to be added instead of the maintenance plant when extracting this list as well for the equipment mass change? So of course here I can still stick to writing CD10 for the sake of this exercise, but since I know that, Sega, you were mentioning about the planning plant and adding the that instead of the maintenance plant in the future, maybe that'll be the case here as well. In the meantime, I'm just going to add the equipment that I have in my own list. So I copied that list, paste it here, and the process is very similar to what we did for physical verification. We have our list of equipment here, and the layout that we're looking for is equipment mass change. So I can execute my report, and here you go. Now the layout is different from the one that we were pulling when we were doing the physical verification layout, and we have the information here as you can see, and I hope there is no delay. There hasn't been any so far, so we're doing good. And now before I extract this Excel, there's a couple of things I want to make mention to. Because this is the first step as SD11, the first thing we would do is extract the list of equipment that needs to be updated. Now, at least this is what's happening to me now in the training environment when I do this, and maybe those of you who have probably tested this in production can also give me the answer. But this also goes out to you, Sega. The dates here, for example, when I see here the acquisition date, it's written in a way that is correct for the Excel. So let's say if I was extracting this report into Excel, the dates should appear like this. But for some reason, when I do extract the Excel, instead of the dots, it's a backslash, the 25/7/2017. So if I don't pay attention to that initially, when I'm copying and pasting the data, it shows up as a backslash instead of a dot. So what I did before was just change it in the Excel that I produce now from Umoja. and I ensure that the mistake doesn't happen. And maybe I can do this live so you can see what I'm talking about. And again, this could just be something from the training environment, or maybe it does happen in production, or it's something that we have to keep in mind as well when copying and pasting data. The same thing happens with the warranty date. We'll see that there's some issues there as well in terms of the dots and the backslashes. Okay, so this is the list of my equipment. And the first thing I'll do is go up to List, click on Spreadsheet, and again, follow the same process.
Brian?
Yes, Sega?
Just to add about the dot versus the backslash. So if you extract the data the way you're doing it now, we will have the dot when it goes into the Excel. But if you extract it, if you download it directly, like if you go to List and you say download to your desktop, then it will have the backslash. So it's just the way that it's downloaded. It will change the format of the date. But the way you're doing it is fine. If you extract it the way you do now and then replace the dot with the backslash, that would work fine as well.
Okay, Sega, thank you. Just again, I'm going to do it now, live anyway, so we can all see it. The only way I've been extracting data so far has been like this, going to List and then selecting the spreadsheet. But I'm going to do it now to see if, of course, it still happens. Okay, so I'm selecting Table and moving on with the Excel here. So I shouldn't have any issues when this Excel is extracted. So we'll see once Umoja returns the results in Excel. So it's quite fast, and here are my results. So see, in this case, and I'm glad it happened so it doesn't seem like I'm crazy here, although I was practicing on my own. But yes, see the slash comes out anyway, even though there is a dot here in the acquisition date. I see the backslash here in the acquisition date. So I did not realize that the first few times I was just copying and pasting the data. See, the same thing happens with the warranty, the vendor warranty. But again, this could always be something in the training environment, and it does not happen in production. It could be. It took me a while to realize that eventually it was the extracted report from I-808 that was giving me the difference here from dots to backslash. So that's the first thing that I wanted to bring up. So what I did was directly just change it here and copy and paste the data. Because if I do it the other way around, then there's the Excel that I extract from iSeek also gives me errors when uploading the file. So just things to keep in mind. Again, it could just be the training environment. But for those of you also in the missions, if you're doing this in production, it would be good to know if you're finding issues or not with the backslash versus the dot. So again, all I would do here is just add the dots instead, or change it for the dots. Okay. And then I would just copy and paste the rest here. And again, this moves over to the left. By any chance, I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but nevertheless, I just move it back to the right just in case. And that's what I did before. So here we have our dots correctly, and the same thing for the vendor warranty. So I just changed that to dots as well. And again, it moves to the left, so I move it to the right just to avoid any issues later on. Okay, so I haven't extracted the template from iSeek yet, but nevertheless, and this also, Sega, this goes out to you as well. The job aid indicates that we should go here, right? Select the entire Excel and make some changes here to the format cells. It tells us actually to select number, and the decimal places move to 0. Okay, so this, I believe this is still necessary, because if not, we'll get issues or errors when converting the file. So now that all that is done, and I've changed the format to 0 decimals, and that's also in the PowerPoint that I was sharing before with you guys. You saw that that's one of the things that I marked to mention later on. Okay, so we have our list of equipment now with the dates, with the dots here as well, and all the dates seem to be correct, and the information here seems to be correct as well. Okay, so what we would do now is select all this data and copy and paste it into our other file. So let me go to iSeek. Okay, so I hope you're seeing this on your screen. Yes. So again, we have the equipment mass change. Yes?
Hi, Brian. So just
Hi, Sega.
so in production, they actually don't have to get rid of the decimals. It will accept the 2 decimal place for the acquisition value.
Okay, so then in production, there's no need to do that.
Yeah, so it's probably in the training environment. And also for the date, the format for the date for the mass update is the backslash in production.
The format for the mass update in production is the backslash. So then
Yes.
the fact that it transforms it from dots to backslash is actually okay.
It's okay, yeah. But you see now when you open the template, you'll see that it will accept the backslash.
Okay, well, actually, in the training environment, it wasn't, so I decided to just keep it in with the dots, just to know, so I can also change the PowerPoint presentation, because in the PowerPoint, I say we have to add the dots.
Yeah, okay.
But it actually has to be the backslash. So then what the Excel is doing is correct.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you, Sega, for checking that. So here we have the job aid for equipment mass change. I also recommend you take a look at that. And the equipment mass change data template here that we will click on to get our Excel sheet, the one where we're going to copy and paste the data. So again, we can open our Excel here. And in the meantime, maybe Saida, if no questions. Yeah, I know. I guess because I'm the only one asking the questions so far. So yes, okay. Let's see if we have our Excel here. Yes, there it is. All right. So this is what our Excel looks like. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this one, as we did go through it. Okay, yeah, it's on screen. Perfect. We did go through it in GDP cycle 2. Okay, so I enable the content. And here we go. So let's take a quick look at this Excel and what I was talking about before when we started the session. First thing, the instructions tab, just like we had for the physical verification. We have same instructions here. So step by step, what we're supposed to do in Umoja to extract the information here. Okay, so you guys can take a look at this one. And then again, the tab IE05 data extract. So if we select this tab, this is the view that we have, and it should match the view and the columns that we have from the data that we extracted from Umoja, which is this one. So we should have the equipment, description, user status, authorization group. So if I bring this down a bit, everything should match in this case. Again, always double check, but this hasn't been an issue for me either, not even in the training environment. So here's where we're going to copy our data from, and here's where we're going to paste this data. Now, once we do that in the IE05 data extract, the next tab here, Update Data, will show us all this information in the grayed out areas. And the ones that are in red here, or with the red header, are the ones that we're supposed to make changes to, if of course there's supposed to be any changes. So you see here it's quite easy. New equipment description, it tells you already mandatory field. The same thing for each one in red. So all these red fields are the ones that we're going to have to add something to. And then the others, which are here in blue, are optional fields. It says it right below here, optional field. And you can keep scrolling to the right. You see it's quite an extensive Excel here with a lot of gray areas that should be populated as soon as you paste the data from the Excel we extracted from Umoja. Again, you also have some green boxes here that are also optional fields. And you can see the Excel continues for a while. So take some time to look over this Excel if you haven't, but I'm sure you're quite familiar with it already. And just like the one for physical verification, we also have a button here to create Excel input file that we're going to be clicking on to generate our, not really our text file in this case. You'll see the difference between this one and the one for physical verification is that once you click on the button, it automatically generates this, or it at least prompts a screen that allows you to save the data in a text file. What this does is it'll generate another tab at the bottom that you're also going to have to grab the data from and paste it into a text file, and that's the one you're going to be uploading. So I know it kind of sounds like a lot of work, but it's not that much once you've done it a couple of times. So let's go to our IE05 tab, where we have the data here, and we go back to the Excel that we extracted from Umoja, and we can copy all the data here all the way to the end, and again just paste it here. Okay, so our data should be there correctly, and the dates here are correctly too. Now what was happening to me, and again it may happen to you guys when you're doing the exercise in the training environment, if I was copying this data from the Excel without having changed the the backslash instead of adding the dot, if I copied it directly with the backslash, when I paste it here, it would actually change the number completely. It would give me a number like 46278 for all the acquisition dates. So that's how I realized that the issue was there when I was pasting the data. Again, you can scroll to the right and see that we have the warranty date as well with the dot, and everything should be okay, and everything should match the column it's under. See, batch, functional location, plant, cost center. And when we click on the update data, we should already have all the gray areas populated with the data that we just pasted. Okay? And actually, even the mandatory fields show up with information already. So before I continue, Saida, any question? Nothing? Okay. Very good. So I'll keep going. So we have our information here. Just take some time, look over these fields, and see that some of them, like for example the equipment description column, will allow you to just make a change manually. And others, like for example new user status, will give you a drop-down option where you can select. Okay, so there are no mistakes or human mistakes when adding data. The same thing for the new authorization group. We also have the drop-down, and so on for new object type. We also have that. So take a look at the fields and the ones that allow you to manually write a figure or to actually select it from a drop-down. Okay, so in this case, I think everything I wanted to explain in terms of mandatory fields, optional fields, and the data that is derived from different tabs has been explained. So in this case, I can make some changes, but I'm not going to do that just because I want to show you first how to generate the text file and then how to upload it into Umoja, and then we can get into maybe changing some things or doing it manually through IE02. Okay, so I shouldn't have any issues now when generating or creating the Excel input file, because all the data I've added should respect the at least what the training environment files want you to write. I know now that Sega mentioned that in production it has to be the backslash instead of the dot, so that's something that we'll keep in mind. And also maybe take a quick look and see if that's what is stated in the job aid. I'm quite unsure about that now, but we can take a look at that. At least we know that in the training environment we do have an issue with that. So if we click on the button Create Excel Input File, it may take a little bit, maybe I don't know, 30, 40 seconds, and sometimes it seems like it's going to crash, but eventually it'll create a new tab at the bottom where we're going to have to copy and paste the data from there to create our text file. So while this generates a new tab, Saida, any questions?
Yeah. Before going further, a question from Hatim who's asking, was actually saying that when he's using the mass change upload template, he thinks that the limit of items is 990, and if he wants to change more items, how can he do that? More than 990. Apparently that's the limit.
Okay, well, thank you, Hatim. Wonderful question. So a limit of 990. So I see you're quite busy updating equipment. So maybe Sega, you can jump in on this one and see. I guess eventually you can always just make the 990 changes first and then generate another file or another template and do another 990. I don't know if there's a way to maybe extend that limitation and just do it all in one file.
Hi, Brian. So there is actually no limit. So you can go as long as many lines as the Excel template, as the Excel will allow. The only thing is if we have multiple records, if we have a large record, the upload will time out and it will fail. So it's better to break it up into chunks of upload or just run it in the background with the full record. But the 990 limit, I'm not aware of. Because I'm looking at the template now, and you can go up to almost, like 1 million. So the only, so the only problem will be the system will time out if you do it in live. So if you have 990 records or more, you should run it in the background. But maybe they can send me an email on the error that they're getting when they have more than 990 records.
Okay, perfect, Sega. Thank you. And yes, maybe even Hatim can clarify that a bit more. Hatim, do you mean the lines in the Excel are 990 lines and that's the limitation? Or is it actually what Sega says that it's timing out when you're going over that amount in Umoja? And you're not doing it in the background. Have you done this in the background? So just clarify that question, or maybe what Sega has just explained is enough of an answer. Okay, and in the meantime, while that happens, the update is complete, as you guys can see on the screen. And please save data to text file. So it's prompting us to do that. So we click OK, and we see now we have a new file here, that is file 1. We can select this file. Initially, it seems like there's nothing there, but again, scroll to your left, and you can see the data is actually there. Okay, so all the data is now here in a new file that we're going to have to copy and paste into a text file. Okay, and at least this is the way it should be done in the training environment with the dates with the dots. Okay, so again, remember, copy and paste, but only copy the data below the headers. We don't need the headers in the text file, so that's quite important. And so we're just going to grab this and copy and paste it into a text file. So I select the whole thing. And in the meantime, has Hadim clarified that question? No. Okay. Well, okay, I just lost my Excel here. All right. Go back to it, make sure that I'm selecting only what I want to select. All right, and now eventually I would have to copy this into a note, into the notepad, and create a text file. So here you go, we'll just paste this information here. Now, if I have gone too fast, let me know. We can write it in the chat. Again, if you guys are writing in the chat and you're writing only to the host, right, which is to me, I'm not checking the chat, so it would be better if you can just write your questions directly to the Q&A or address them to Saida instead, so we can see maybe you guys are having some issues or you're not hearing me well. I'm not able to see that right now. So anything on maybe I'm going too fast? No, fine. Okay, so simply what I did is just copy the data from the file that was generated. See, we have the 3 tabs. There's a new file generated at the bottom, and I just pasted that data into Notepad, and now I'm going to save this so that when I upload this information, okay, so again, I already have that file here under H, which is easier for me. So I have the mass upload WebEx. I know that's the one that refers to what I want to do. So in this case, I'm not going to save it again because I already have it there, and I know it's the one that works. So we can now go on back to Umoja and actually test and see if the the data that I've updated, or the data that I've entered into the sheet is accurate, because if not, Umoja will return an error. So what we're looking for is that green light first in the test run and then the official run. Okay, so we can get rid of my old Excel here and go back to the initial screen. Okay, so far what we have done is we've extracted the list of equipment that needs to be updated. We've added that information into the Excel that we've downloaded from iSeek for the mass upload template. We've generated this data into a format that will allow us to copy and paste this data into a text file. We've saved this text file to our desktop, or in my case, I've saved it in a place where it's much easier for me to upload into Umoja. And now I can upload it into Umoja. But of course, this was very quick and easy, and it was only 5 pieces of equipment. You guys, as Khatim was saying, will deal with larger, much larger amounts of equipment. So human error in terms of keying in information can be can occur a lot more often. But Saida, there's a question.
No, I think, yeah, Sega, if you want to take over and clarify Hatim's question, you are free to do.
Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood Hatim's question earlier. So what the question is, if in the template, the formula goes only up to row 999. So if they're trying to update equipment records that are over 999, because if the formula is not applied in the template and the update data tab, it doesn't allow you to create the text file. So what we need to do is, if you have a record more than 999, just go to the third tab and copy the formulas down. So the formula only go up to 999 in the template. So if you have more than 999, you'll just need to copy all the formula down to however many records they are trying to update. And that was the question from Hatim.
I see, thank you. So eventually, just to make sure that I also understood what you're saying, we'd be in the IE05 tab, and here's where we would copy the formula?
No, in the update data tab.
In the update data tab, we'd copy the formula here.
So yes. Okay. So if you scroll down, so go all the way to 999.
Okay, because I know Hatim has probably spent some time doing this, but other attendees may not have.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure they know and they're following what we're doing here too. Okay. So eventually I will scroll down here to 999. Okay. All right, here, where the nice yellow line is.
Exactly. So that's where the formula is. So if you click on column B,
at the top?
Sorry, at the bottom, just on the row 999.
All right.
Yeah, see? So 999 has the formula, and if you go down, and then if you go down one more, so that's where the formula ends. So since there's no formula, it's not going to update this tab. So what we need to do is just copy the whole row and paste it down to however many records they're going to be updating.
Okay.
So the formula for each, the whole thing has to be copied down.
I see. And that, of course, the best thing would be to do that when it's blank, right? When the tab has no data first, just copy the whole thing and then add your other 900.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, because if you do this with data there, then you may mess it all up. So, of course, if you're going to do this, that's for all the attendees. And thanks, Tega. That's a great explanation. I'm sure that clarifies a lot. You copy and paste this formula before you have added any data, even in the data extract. So, of course, with the blank Excel template, we would copy this whole column and then, of course, add it at the bottom after 999. Well, I went way too far.
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe that is quite clear. And thank you for clarifying that for Hatim as well. Sega, that was very helpful. Okay, any other questions maybe? No? Okay, so right now I believe we were back here in Umoja. So now that we have our text file, we're going to make the upload so that these changes can also be reflected in Umoja, right? Because the whole point is to have our accurate records. So eventually now we have to go to the T code that I shared before in the PowerPoint, that it was quite a long T code. So let's go back to our PowerPoint and see what the T code was and just copy and paste it. Again, if you guys have your exercise in front of you, which I believe I have here, what we're asking you guys to do in the exercise, which now should be on screen, yes, okay, is exactly that, right? So we extract the list of equipment, I808, extract the list of equipment with the layout, okay, the new layout instead of the ZZ_PV. We update the equipment with discrepancies using mass upload tool. So we paste results from list extracted, correct discrepancies, add necessary corrections to each discrepancy. Remember, we added one discrepancy for each. So of course, you guys remember that on session 2 or day 2, the requirement was to add discrepancy 01. So in this case, we wouldn't have to do anything with that piece of equipment because it would update automatically. And that's if we understood correctly what the job aid was mentioning and what Sega also confirmed. So basically focus on the ones on the discrepancy 02, 03, 04.
Brian?
Yes, Sega.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
so for discrepancy type 1, the technical section, the SC11, would still need to take action to change the equipment.
Sorry, Sega, we lost you there for a second.
Okay, so for the discrepancy SD0 for the 01 discrepancy, equipment not found.
Yes.
So the technical section would still need to take action on those equipment because now the status is going to show as not found. So they will have to do all the necessary checks to see if it's been found or if it's assigned to anyone, and update the equipment status to either assigned or in stock. And if it is lost, then they'll have to initiate the write-off and change the equipment status to say it's write-off in process. So basically,
all right, so let's see, I have the Excel on screen now, right? And it does say here the status is equipment not found.
Yeah.
For that piece of equipment, right, which was 0, 01, 02, 03, 04. So the second one still says equipment not found. So an ST11 would never eventually do what I'm about to do, to upload this text file with the not found status?
No, they wouldn't. So it's already not found. So they would change it to whatever needs to be changed to.
Okay, they would always have to change it before uploading this file. Whether they find it, whether they don't find it, they would have to initiate the write-off process, whatever it is, but never update it saying equipment not found.
So the way you have it now, it's not going to make any change, right? Or the old value is not found, the new value is not found.
Exactly.
So this won't make any change. But if the equipment, depending on what the outcome of their assessment is, then they'll need to take the action to change the equipment record. So they're not just going to leave it as not found. They will have to update it eventually.
All right. Well, that definitely clarifies a lot, Sega. Sorry, and that's what I had understood, just to make sure. But I'm glad you clarified that as well. So eventually, we'd never do this exactly. Okay. Fine. So for those of you who are performing the exercise in the training environment for the sake of this WebEx, we can just leave it as it is. But again, thanks for Sega for confirming that. That would never happen when actually updating the equipment in real life. Okay. So let's go back to Umoja here, and let's copy and paste our long T code. Okay, which is this one here. And eventually the screen looks very similar to the one when we were doing the physical verification updates. Okay, again, we have our test mode here. Sega was also mentioning the background processing, which, as you can see, is right here. We have the file path, and right underneath it, we have the background processing, right, to avoid the timeouts. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, and for those of you who are not, you would just have to select this, and again, it would be processing in the background and would have less of a timeout for those executions of documents that are quite long. Okay, so the file path again, we click on the matchbox, and we go looking for our text file. So in this case, I will look for my network drive H and allow Umoja to access. And here we go. And I would look for the file that I've saved, not the Excel file, but the text file. So again, we're doing just like we did for physical verification, and I still have it here, session 2. It was a text file. We're doing the same for the mass upload. So select it. And the first thing we do is run the test mode. And that should give us a green light or say it's okay. So here you go. We have a green light and it says no issues found for the pieces of equipment. Of course, I've made no changes in this test run because I wanted to show you guys the process. And then eventually, once that is the case, we just go back, uncheck the test mode, and just execute without the test mode running, and it should also give us a green light and let us know that the changes of the equipment were made successfully. And here it is. So equipment changed successfully, user status updated successfully, and so on for all the pieces of equipment with the green light. So in this case, that would be the end of the process when using the mass upload tool approach. And before we continue, Saida, there's some questions there?
Yeah, sure. Just because some of you cannot hear Brian, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear him. I mean, I don't have a problem, but I received some message from you guys, some of you saying that you cannot hear him. So if you can please confirm, that's the first thing. And then we have a question from Jatu asking if it is possible to link the security investigative unit reference number, name, date in the discrepancy of the barcode statute to include a column or something.
Okay, well, this is like a request to add this column, I guess, in the discrepancies. So that is definitely something I'm going to leave to you, Sega.
Brian, sorry, we couldn't hear the question.
Sure. Saida, could you read that again, please?
Sure. Is it possible to link the security investigative unit reference number, name, date in the discrepancies of the barcode / statute to include a column?
I think we can put that in the comments section, in the comment characteristic.
Yeah, definitely. I think what Fatou is asking is maybe an update of the Jatu, sorry, Jatu, yes, is asking for an updated version, I guess, of the physical verification template to add a discrepancy or a column or option. Because I know yesterday you did mention that, Sega, as well, that adding comments to the in the comment column like this would be more than enough. But I don't know if I'm understanding, and Jatu is actually asking for an updated version, no, of the template, maybe. Anyway, she can clarify that as well.
Okay,
but of course,
for now, I suggest putting that information in the comment section, so at least you'll have it against the record.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sega. Any other, Saida, before I go on? No? Okay, so the mass upload process was done successfully. We have our green light. And according to what is requested by the exercise, right, once we've uploaded the equipment and the changes to the T code, we upload the text file and we have the green light. You have your steps here as shown, and the deliverable for exercise 3 is just simply to provide us the screenshot like you did for physical verification of the test run OK, which was quite easy. It was the one I did before I I unchecked the box for test run. And then here I simply ask you guys to provide an updated list of equipment records using the ZZPV layout. Now again, this is not a process you'd have to do as the physical verification high-level process, but we're just asking you this to see that the actual changes were made to the equipment based on the records that we have initially. So it's quite easy. You just basically have to go back and extract the list of equipments with the ZCPV layout. That's all. But with those of you who can do that and send the screenshot, I've already seen that some of you have sent us this screenshot and also the equipment Excel, so there is no problem. This one shouldn't take you more than 10-15 minutes of your time, so please, this would be the last deliverable. And again, remember, the deadline for this would be Friday, COB, so the last day of this week by close of business. You know, some of you are reaching out to me telling me that you have meetings or there's some issues to do it on Friday. So of course, if it's Saturday, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. We'll definitely allow you some leeway there time. But of course, Friday would be the best. And if you do this just every day after the end of the session for 10 minutes, it shouldn't take you more than that. And like that, you can also practice in the training environment. Okay, so the next thing, if there are no further questions, would be mainly to go over the possibility or the option to make these changes. Let's say if we were only updating one piece of equipment, we could just do it using the T code IE02, or even other T codes like in the PowerPoint presentation. And let me bring that up here. IE02, IE05, and IE08, where we can just maybe extract the list of equipment that we need to update and do that one by one. Now, again, I know there's a possibility. For example, here, let's go back and we'll go to I808, execute that T code, and I'll paste the equipment again here. Well, no, I guess that's not the last thing I had. Okay, let me just go back to my Excel here and paste that information. So if I was going directly here in I808 and pulling the report of this equipment, let's say I'm going to execute this and have the equipment here directly and just double click on the equipment. At least in the training environment, this is a possibility. Now, maybe if I'm saying something that's not possible in production, the way I'm doing it now, it will also let me know. But the option here to display or change the equipment, right? So if we have our list of equipment here, and we just double click on the piece of equipment and click on the glasses and the pencil, now suddenly our fields that were blued out instead of grayed out are now seem to be available for change. And what can we change? Well, the same things we could change when we were doing the mass upload, or at least similar. The object type, the authorization group, also acquisition value, the acquisition date. So these are fields that we changed in the mass upload tool as well. Then again, we also have the status here. And if I click on the I button, and maybe I did that a little too quick. So status, equipment idle, we click on the I button, and we could always just change the status of the equipment here as well. Once all our changes are made, and then of course you have more tabs to make more changes. So again, you have your location here, organization tab. So take a look at this for the cost center, structure, so technical ID, as well the functional location that is here. Okay, and the button here, change install location, which we would click on to make changes to this functional location. Okay, this is the functional location that is there, but we could always make changes to this as well. Then we have the other tab for warranty. And again, here at the right, we have this box that will allow us to see all the tabs that are present here that we can just move through if we can't see them initially. So you also have here your material number, serial number, history, and so on. So again, all the changes, even the change in terms of deleting or changing, right, the user accountable or the vendor maybe can be done directly from here by selecting one of these. So it doesn't have to be the mass upload tool if you're updating one piece of equipment, but it's the tool you should use when, of course, like Hatim, you're making changes to 990 pieces of equipment. I would suggest you use the mass upload tool. So again, we have the showing you here the option to just have the list of 5 pieces of equipment and double-clicking on each one of them. You can also do that going to T-code IE02 with one piece of equipment at a time if you know the equipment number, and just click on OK, and the same screen will appear. And then we can also do this with IE05. Oh, sorry. I said IE05, so here we go. I believe it's wrong probably in the sheet here in the PowerPoint. So basically there are more ways than one to make these changes. Okay, so here IE05, so it's in the PowerPoint, it is correct. Okay, I was just making sure. And again, it would work the same way as IE08. You'd add your equipment numbers, execute the report, and then make the changes that are necessary. Okay, so as there's 15 minutes left for the end of this session, we can take a look at no questions. All right, wonderful. So maybe we can go on with the polling questions that I have ready for students, and maybe that will generate some more questions, and then maybe some closing remarks from Sega or Cass, maybe on something that I may have missed, or something that's important that we should say as this is the last step of the physical verification WebEx series. Okay, so while I close this, just let me know if anybody asks a question in the meantime. If not, I'm preparing the polling and sending it over to you guys. Okay, everyone, so I'm about to open the poll. Take a look at these questions. It's another 5 questions related to what we've seen today and covered today. Sorry, Sega?
Oh, sorry, Brian. I thought we were on mute.
No. You just unmuted yourself, so I just wanted to let you know.
All right.
Okay. All right, perfect. So I'm launching the poll here, so you guys can start answering the questions. And again, we'll send the answers, the correct answers, and the questions as well, like we did throughout the week. So I'll give you guys a good 3 minutes to answer these questions. Please feel free to ask more questions in the Q&A. And Sega and Cass, if you want, once the poll is over, if in another 4 minutes, if you want to add something, please do so.
Brian, I think you've covered almost everything. Well, you've covered everything. We don't have anything more to add from our side.
All right. Well, thank you. That's perfect then. Well, since the polling is really the last part of the WebEx session, if unless there's any last question there in the Q&A, no. It's been a pleasure having you guys there. Thanks, Sega. You've been very helpful. And all your updates have clarified a lot of the questions from the students and my own. So thank you, guys. Okay, and in the meantime, we have at least 50 people answering the questions. Okay, so another 2 minutes and 30 seconds for the questions. Take a look at them. Please feel free to add any more questions to the Q&A. All right, thank you guys. There's another 40 seconds, and I see at least 65 people have finished the Q&A. That's very good news. So I think it's a good time to stop recording the session since there are more questions, correct? And again, Sega and Cass, thank you guys. I don't know if you guys were answering or not. You were muted, but it's been a pleasure having you. We're going to compile the Q&A and probably write down the answers to all these questions that the students have been asking us throughout the session and send it over to you just for review. So the polling session's over. Thank you guys for participating. I'm going to mark the correct questions.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you guys. And here are the correct questions so you guys can view them. Again, remember, we're going to send these in an email as well. It's been a pleasure having you guys as attendees, as always. Good to hear the old voices of some good old friends. And until the next WebEx that we have, or maybe workshop in person. So have a good day and a good weekend for those of you who Thursday is your Friday.